It is 7 o'clock. It is 7 o'clock. And it usually takes me longer than this to lose control, but tonight we got an early start on it. So we are going to start now the regular meeting of council. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, city officials. Welcome to the June 9th, 2025 regular city council meeting. We are meeting at 26 South Paint Street, Chiillicothe, Ohio, and I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Bennett?
Present.
Payne?
Here.
Barnes?
Here.
McKeever?
Here.
Dement?
Here.
Preston?
Here.
Dunn?
Here.
Creed?
Here.
Next, we're going to turn to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask Ms. Bennett to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
President Shoemaker.
Councilman Creed.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. Items 10 and 11 should have emergency language attached to them when they're read. Thank you.
And the actual ordinance already has that included, correct? We're not changing the language of the ordinance itself.
Correct. Yes, the language is already in there. It was just not on the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Preston. The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett?
Yes.
Payne?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
The agenda is amended, and now we'll move to the minutes. The minutes from the May 28, 2025 rescheduled regular meeting have been distributed. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections?
I have a correction for the minutes. When I shared Mr. Jamie Brown's public participation, he gave us the date for the Sojourners Youth Build graduation, and that is June 12th, not July 12th.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Mr. Creed, second by Ms. Bennett. Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett?
Yes.
Payne?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
Moving to reports of committees, Development Committee, Mr. Dement.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Development has one item on tonight's agenda, number 13, and it's the first reading of a resolution establishing the Greater Chiillicothe Ross County Film Commission and defining its composition, purpose, duties, and operational guidelines. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineering Committee, Mr. McKeever.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Engineering, excuse me, has one item on the agenda tonight, which is item number 2. It's a third reading of an ordinance appropriating $9,000 to purchase additional traffic equipment for the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT Bridge Street project. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Finance Technology Committee, Mr. Creed.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have 4 items on the agenda tonight. First one is item number 8. It's an ordinance appropriating $146,032.67 for our share of the Western Avenue project. That's second reading. And the next one is item number 9. It's a first reading of an ordinance to appropriate $100,000 in income tax refund and authorize transfer of $25,000 back to general fund from the proportionate share of income tax refunds. Next one is item number 10. This is the first reading also. It's an ordinance appropriating $40,000 to cover the cost of indigent burials. At the appropriate time, I'll ask to waive the 3-read rule because we are outstanding on some of those bills. And the next item is number 16. It is the first reading of a resolution adopting the tax budget for the city of Chiillicothe for the calendar year beginning January 1, 2026. We just had the meeting on that prior to the council meeting, and we'll have time to review that and get the 3 reads in for that as well. That concludes finance.
Thank you. Human Resources Committee, Ms. Payne.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We do not have an item on the agenda tonight and nothing new to report on. Thank you.
Thank you. Parks and Rec Committee, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. There's nothing on the agenda tonight, and I have nothing new to report.
Thank you. Safety Service Committee, Mr. Creed.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Safety Service has 4 items on the agenda. The first one is item number 6. It's a second reading of an ordinance, $7,924.90 to purchase 5 laptops for the law director's office. The next one is item number 7, also a second reading, and this is an ordinance providing for an agreement between the city of Chiillicothe and the Ross County Commissioners to allow us to continue to be eligible for through 2026 for state reimbursement of cost incurred in appointing counsel for indigent criminal defendants. Next item is item number 11. That is a first reading of an ordinance appropriating $30,000 to cover expenses for the fire department vehicle repairs. And again, we're outstanding on some of these invoices, so at the appropriate time, I'll ask to waive the 3-read rule. And the last one I have is item number 12, and that's an ordinance accepting and appropriating a grant award of $720 from the Ohio Attorney General's office for municipal courts for them to be able to do BCI reporting. And at the appropriate time, I'll ask to waive the 3-read rule so we can meet the June 12th deadline, I believe. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Utilities Committee, Mr. McKeever.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I'd like to go back to Engineering Committee, an oversight on my part. I would like to call a review committee a session for June 12th at 5 p.m. regarding assignment 25047, which is dealing with the rezoning of 36 North Walnut Street. Again, the review session will be June 12th at 5 p.m. here in council chambers.
Thank you. I'll send out the notice on that to make sure that that notice goes out to everyone. So I'll get that out to everyone.
All right. Now on to utilities. Utilities has 6 items on the agenda for tonight. Number 1, which is a third reading of an ordinance amending section 9111606B1 of the Chiillicothe Codified Ordinances upon recommendation of the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. Number 2 is item number 3, third reading for a resolution authorizing the city of Chiillicothe to enter into a sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council. This execution and delivery of an agreement establishment between the SOPEC and approving the bylaws of the SOPEC. Item number 4, second reading of an ordinance amending the Utilities Department cross connection and backflow prevention policy in compliance with the Ohio Administrative Code. Item number 5, which is a second reading of an ordinance reallocating funds from the sewer capital project titled Generator to the Marietta Lift Station Improvement Project. Item number 14, which is the first read, and at the appropriate time I'll be asking for a waiver of the 3-read rule, which is an ordinance authorizing the appropriation of the existing and future CDS grant funds to an expense line for the purpose of making payments to the contractor of the wastewater treatment plant project and declaring an emergency. And finally, number 15, which is the first read of an ordinance amending chapter 91508 of the city codified ordinances to increase water rates by 2%. That concludes my report.
Thank you. City Services Committee, Ms. Preston.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. City Services has nothing on the agenda this evening and has nothing to report.
Thank you. Community Affairs Committee, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We don't have anything on the agenda tonight and nothing to report.
Thank you. We'll now move to reports of officials. Mayor Feeney.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Touching on tonight's agenda and to echo Councilman McKeever's request, I'd support the passage of that legislation that he requested as well tonight. The main thing I want to talk about and give attention to is all the latest news or lack thereof regarding Pixel. I'll start by saying I don't have any official communication from the paper mill that any of you don't have. What I will say is that close to 60 days ago, April 15th, we received communication from Pixel that they had issued what's called a WARN notice, W-A-R-N. A WARN notice is required when there's layoffs impacting more than 100 employees in the state of Ohio. That 60 days would expire this Friday or Saturday. That WARN notice has not been retracted. I think everybody recalls Good Friday, a rally down on 8th Street, and some hope that the paper mill would stay open through the end of the year. It is not my expectation the paper mill will stay open through the end of the year. I would expect that we would have an update on that news this week, but I am not optimistic that we will be operating a paper mill in this community through the end of the year. On that front, I just want to give some updates on what has been happening largely behind the scenes so that the community can be reassured at the very least that there are efforts related to first and foremost, those employees and families that work and are impacted by the paper mill today and in the future, and then what the future of the facility looks like to the extent that I know that today. So on the employee, job, employment, and support front, local community groups, including but not limited to the Chamber of Commerce, the county commissioners, Chiillicothe Ross County Public Library, United Way, Ohio University, and of course the city, Jobs Ohio, have teamed together to do a variety of things. First and foremost, there's a new website launched called Scioto Valley Forward, sciotavalleyforward.com. That will be the hub for new and official information, particularly when it comes to employment and support for individuals employed at that facility. The library has already opened, as of today, I believe, a resource center which will be open in the main library annex from noon to 4, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with the goal of supporting individuals who are looking at job application support, job readiness support, that sort of thing. There will be a job fair at the university on June 25th. More information can be found on that website. But the idea is, and the challenge is for all of us, doing many things at once and putting all of our energy into all of those things. So one thing is preparing for the worst. If the paper mill closes, there are 800 people, employees who will be displaced. And how do we support them and their families, when it comes to immediate needs, whether that's unemployment, whether that's food, whether that's healthcare. And then in the meantime, thinking about if displacement is coming, we have very, very talented people at that paper mill, and how do we position them to best find good gainful employment from that point forward. The catch-22 there is, if there's a max exodus from the paper mill, then when potential purchasers, which is an ongoing thing, is people visiting the paper mill, inquiring about purchase of the facility, it's nice to be able to say you've got a great workforce there and they're continuing to work and they'll be there if somebody else comes along. And so that presents a challenge. But so on the employment front, that is a significant and coordinated effort. That second front that I mentioned is something that has been largely led by Jobs Ohio in coordination and cooperation with Pixel to essentially identify and court potential purchasers who in particular might be able to use the facility in a similar manner, right? Because it is a paper mill, it uses resources, it's the reason it's here, things like timber, and finding a purchaser who could do something similar to what we already have is an ideal situation. So that effort, regardless of if the paper mill closes in 30, 60, 90, 120 days, whatever it might be, that effort continues. So two things are happening at once. And then the third thing is thinking through if a purchaser doesn't come along in the meantime and keep some sort of operation going, what that plan C looks like. And talking through, we can all picture industrial sites in various parts of the country who have gone abandoned and not repurposed in a fast fashion. And so there's significant time and energy going into what repurposing could look like. Of course, you have a private owner who owns a thing, and in order to repurpose has to be cooperative in that effort, right? So there are situations where a company can go, let's say, for example, I'm not implying this, but a company goes bankrupt, walks away, a facility lays dormant. That's a situation we would love to avoid. I don't think there's a scenario where this company is going bankrupt, but controlling and having an impact on the future of the site as a local community is something that's very important, I think, to all of us. To that end, the Ross County Commissioners, who are in the middle of their comprehensive plan, are going to focus some of their time and attention within that comprehensive plan and the efforts that they are doing around economic development, looking at that area of the city to think about what repurposing could and should look like if we got to that point. It is a challenging place to be because I think the best case scenario, we would all agree, is that the paper mill stays open, it flourishes, we reinvest in it, and it's a great scenario. But we have to be diligent and attack all fronts. And so I would say that the coordination and the support that I'm seeing from every level, from the federal government, the state government, Jobs Ohio, to the local level, county commissioner, city, chamber, everybody involved, you name it, everybody's pulling in the same direction. Communication has been open. Nobody is being territorial. And so in a bad situation, I can point to that as something positive because I think that leads to our best outcome. I wish I had more concrete information to share. It's a challenging position to be in to not be able to share or to be able to tell the community what's happening. And frankly, the reason for that is we just don't know. Even the structure of the ownership of the facility, which is, a local company, or a one company owned and operated by somebody else out of state, also presents challenges. And so we are doing our best. The lines of communication are open with those two entities, Pixel and HIG, and we're doing our best to keep those lines of communication open and cordial. And I would say that despite the negative situation, that those conversations have been open and we believe productive and honest as possible. And so I'll commit to communicating the best I can, both to council and to the public, what I know and what our efforts are. And we will stay in this thing together and pull through on the other side. Thank you, President Schmaker.
I will just add to that there has been a lot of activity that's been going on relative to that particular issue with all levels, with everybody trying to communicate to make sure we are working together, and mainly to keep a focus on those employees there that we want to make sure we help. So there's been a lot of activity take place. I would now move to the auditor, Ms. Bethnagel.
Prior to this meeting, I had a tax budget public hearing, so that's been prepared. It is on the agenda. I think it's item number 16. We'll get 3 reads out of that. But there are extra copies floating around. If anybody has any questions, you can contact me and let me know. And then the next thing that my office has been working on is a new transparency platform. Before we used OpenGov, and now we're using ClearGov. So Lauren's going to do a really quick presentation. She also has some of these papers here, so to connect to it, you just have to scan this, and then you'll be able to look up and see all of the city expenditures. But I'll let her just show you a really quick little presentation about it.
Thank you, Auditor Spetnagel. Wow. So very briefly, we have been working with ClearGov, myself and the auditor, to bring more transparency to our fiscal office. So you can find ClearGov by using chillicothe.oh.cleargov.com, or we also keep all of our financial information on chillicothe.oh.gov. When you go to departments and select the auditor tab, we always have on here our comprehensive annual financial reports, our popular annual financial reports, and any additional information you'd like to know. We also utilize Ohio Checkbook. It's important to note that all of our fiscal information gets updated after we close our books. So you can find the most up-to-date information after we close the month, usually the month after. So for example, we are clear through April 2025 for both transparency websites. May will be coming soon. The overview tab is excellent, and you all will be able to dive in deeper. This is live. But the overview gives a great demographic snapshot of Chiillicothe. And then, of course, you can dive into our revenues, our expenses. Again, this is updated through April of 2025. The debt always looks scary, but it's really not that bad. And it kind of, you can break this down again by fund and take a look at what all of that means. It is tied to Open Checkbook on here, so feel free to take a look at any of our expenditures that we have. But what's more unique with ClearGov is you're also able to track revenues with expenditures. Open Checkbook is just expenditures. Fund balances on here. We are tracking 2025, but again, there's many fund balances. Just toggle down. You can take a look at everything that we do. You can always leave comments throughout. It's very interactive. When you go to the expenditures, you can play around, throw in what you pay in property taxes, and see what you're contributing to the city. So should you have any questions, this is new. We are working on it, but ClearGov has been great to work with. So just do not hesitate to contact our office. Our contact information, again, is on chillicothe.oh.gov. So thank you very much.
And then that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Miller's here from the Law Director's Office. I'll turn to him next.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Yes, I'm here on behalf of the elected Anna Villarreal. No report to give. I am familiar with the agenda this evening, and I'd be happy to lend as much guidance as I can, either on an administrative level or a municipal court level, either one. Always open for questions, and will help any way I can tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now we'll move to audience participation. Any person wishing to address the council must first provide his or her name and address. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes, and I'll give you a warning when there is 1 minute remaining. Hearing none.
Sorry, I can't let a meeting go by without speaking. My name is AJ Tainer. I live at 81 North Paint Street, apartment 2B. First, I want to thank the auditor for this new transparency site. I am very excited to go looking through that. I wish all of our departments had something like this to make it easy for the community to go through and see what's going on. The second thing I wanted to mention was at the last meeting, I brought out observer reports for those watching to basically kind of grade the city council, see who's paying attention, mark what's going on with the agendas, see who's present, how many community members are present, and whatnot. A few of these city council members did fill that out, for which I am extremely grateful. And however, a few others were concerned about the sunshine laws and who would be and where the responsibility for maintaining those records would be. I did reach out to the auditor's office and looking at myself. The responsibility for maintaining those records is with the Chiillicothe City Trackers, and they're taking very seriously. That being said, I know those of you who had to turn it down for that reason were very bummed out about not being able to do it. So do not worry. I did make sure to bring enough observer reports for everybody. I actually have them over here and would love to hand them out real quick, because there is a portion on the back to follow as you all vote on the agenda to mark what passes, what goes on to the next read, so on and so forth. If I'm able, I'd love to hand those out real quick.
If you don't mind, let's do them afterwards, and they can catch up there. They can take notes, I think, right now. Okay, but I appreciate it, because once again, City Trackers is not a part of the city, so we don't run into the issues that we had raised. So I appreciate the information, appreciate your work. So thank you for your
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is just my name is Tana Siders. I live at 415 Lembeck Road. This is just a reminder that this Wednesday is going to be the first coffee with council. I was hoping that any of you that were planning on participating, if you guys could talk to me before you leave today, but just throwing it out there that it's going to be this Wednesday. I believe we agreed on 4:30.
Yeah, so that'll be 4:30 at 15
Chiillicothe.
East 2nd Street, which is Chiillicothe
Chiillicothe.
Cafe.
He's better at this than I am. Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to old business. Is there any old business to come before council? Hearing none, we'll move on to petitions and correspondence.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I've not received anything.
Is there any new business to come before council this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to the reading of ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have 16 items on our agenda this evening. Item number 1 is the third reading of an ordinance amending section 911.16.06B1 of the Chiillicothe Codified Ordinances upon recommendation of the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency.
The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett?
Yes.
Payne?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance.
Item number 2 is a third reading of an ordinance appropriating $9,000 to purchase additional traffic equipment for Ohio Department of Transportation Bridge Street project.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett?
Yes.
Payne?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. The next resolution.
Item number 3 is the third reading of a resolution authorizing the City of Chiillicothe to enter into the Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council and the execution and delivery of the agreement establishing SOPEC and approving the bylaws of SOPEC.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett?
Yes.
Payne?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. The next ordinance.
Item number 4 is the second reading of an ordinance amending the utility department's cross-connection and backflow prevention policy in compliance with the Ohio Administrative Code.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. The next ordinance.
Item number 5 is the second reading of an ordinance reallocating funds from the sewer capital project titled Generator to the Marietta Lift Station Improvements Project.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance.
Item number 6 is the second reading of an ordinance appropriating $7,924.90 to purchase 5 laptop computers for the law director's office.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda, the next ordinance.
Item number 7 is the second reading of an ordinance providing for an agreement between the City of Chiillicothe, Ohio, and the Ross County Commissioners, whereby the City of Chiillicothe, Ohio, will continue to be eligible through 2026 for state reimbursement of cost incurred in appointing counsel for indigent criminal defendants.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda, the next ordinance.
Item number 8 is the second reading of an ordinance appropriating $146,032.67 to pay the City of Chillicothe's share of a previous Ohio Department of Transportation Western Avenue Safety Project.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda, next ordinance.
Item number 9 is the first reading of an ordinance to appropriate $100,000 to the income tax refund line and authorize the transfer of $25,000 back to the general fund to support the proportionate share of income tax refunds.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda, the next ordinance.
Item number 10 is the first reading of an ordinance appropriating $40,000 to cover the cost of indigent burials and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Creed,
President Shoemaker, I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule.
second by Ms. Payne. The clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. The clerk will now call the roll relative to the ordinance.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. The next ordinance.
Item number 11 is the first reading of an ordinance appropriating $30,000 to cover expenses for the city fire department vehicle repairs and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Creed,
Shoemaker, I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule.
second by Ms. Dunn. The clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. We will now move to the vote on the ordinance itself.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance.
Item number 12 is the first reading of an ordinance accepting and appropriating a grant award in the amount of $720 from the Ohio Attorney General and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Creed,
President Shoemaker, I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule.
second by Ms. Payne. The clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. Clerk will call the roll relative to the ordinance.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Next resolution.
Item number 13 is the first reading of a resolution establishing the Greater Chiillicothe Ross County Film Commission and defining its composition, purpose, duties, and operational guidelines.
Resolution will move to the next agenda, the next ordinance.
Item number 14 is the first reading of an ordinance authorizing the appropriation of existing and future CDS grant funds to an expense line for the purpose of making payments to the contractor for the wastewater treatment plant project and declaring an emergency.
President Shoemaker, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule.
second by Mr. Creed. The clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived, and the clerk will now call the roll relative to the ordinance.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. The next ordinance.
Item number 15 is the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 915.08 of the City Codified Ordinances to increase water rates by 2%.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda, the next resolution.
Item number 16 is the first reading of a resolution adopting the tax budget for the City of Chiillicothe, Ohio for the calendar year beginning January 1, 2026, submitting the same to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
Resolution will move to the next agenda, and that finalizes all of the items relative to resolutions and ordinances. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Ms. Bennett, seconded by Ms. Preston. The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.